Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and lessons learned from 2016 by anyone other than President Trump. I'm talking about at the national political level. Maybe you could throw in Josh Hawley, at least on this particular aspect of economic policy. Selena Zito, our friend, writing at WashingtonExaminer.com, 3 words will decide Trump's fate in November. Made in the USA.
Yep.
Or actually made in America, because made in the USA before years. But anyway, made in America. 3 words will decide his fate, made in America. And she writes, as the future of the laborers who don't have the luxury of working from home is decided by the people who do, manufacturing, job creation, and made in America products will increasingly decide who wins in November rather than the latest Twitter outrage. That may be something where there is more agreement than one might suspect across the political spectrum. Joining us to discuss is John MacArthur. He's a publisher of Harper's Magazine, author of The Selling of Free Trade and You Can't Be President, The Outrageous Barriers to Democracy in America. John, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Nice to be with you.
So is Selena Zito onto something when she describes the landscape?
Well, she's got on to something new. I mean, that's why Trump won in 2016. I am firmly convinced, and the numbers back it up, that NAFTA and the lesser-known permanent normal trade relations with China are what brought Hillary Clinton down in those 3 crucial states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, because those were 3 of the states hardest hit by the loss of jobs. You know, these were deals made by the Democrats, Clinton, initiated by President Bush, to be fair, the first President Bush, but completed with great enthusiasm by Bill Clinton, that cost the country millions. We don't know exactly how many, but millions of pretty good, higher-paying industrial jobs that went to Mexico and China. And since we're talking Democratic Party politics, let's not forget that Chicago was one of the epicenters of the pro-NAFTA push. Rahm Emanuel himself was a major lobbyist for the Clinton administration, had a lot to do. He's all over my book for getting NAFTA pushed through over the objections of labor unions. And Rich Daley and Mayor Daley.
Yeah,
Rich Daley
right, sure.
also.
Yeah, now
but what was in it for them?
Now doing business. What was in it for Richard? Now doing business overseas in China in retirement, where he was. Here's the thing. I mean, what's in it for them? It's who they serve. That's what you get to. And Scranton Joe has a problem, John, and I know you're a man of the left, so this must upset you. He's got a problem, as you point out in your very good piece in The Spectator. He voted for NAFTA. He voted for permanent normal trade relations with China, repeal of Glass-Steagall. These are not votes that are going to set well with those Scranton, Pennsylvania voters.
Right, and even maybe not worse, but also very bad, he's the father of the Bankruptcy Bill, which makes it harder for people to declare personal bankruptcy and get protection from creditors in court, because he was the servant of the credit card business that's based in Wilmington, Delaware. They used to call him the senator from MBNA.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything about, and right now with mass unemployment and people being pushed presumably into personal bankruptcy or into dire straits, this bankruptcy bill, which by the way is what got Elizabeth Warren into politics, because she was so angry about it. This is going to hurt Biden if Trump uses it. I mean, I don't know if Trump is quite up to using it, but I think so far he tweeted very loudly after Bernie Sanders was knocked out of the race or was pushed out of the race. All of you disaffected Democrats, in effect, come to vote for me. I'm the one who stands up to the Chinese, or I stand up to the business interests and to the 2 parties to some extent on trade issues. And this is where, as I say, it's extraordinary that Trump, in many ways, can run to the left of Biden on trade issues and on some other things too.
Well, and
what other things?
Well, you can't accuse Trump. Paradoxically, one thing that Democrats are going to say is he's a do-nothing president who's not been up to meeting the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, people can talk about what he's done, and I've criticized him for not being for being incoherent and saying crazy things like injecting yourself with a disinfectant and so on. But he has not behaved like Herbert Hoover. He's gone along with massive deficit spending, which traditionally is something that Democrats support, that the Republican Party opposes. So that also puts him more with John Maynard Keynes, the famous British economist who said that you should use deficit spending in recessions and depressions, and Trump has gone along with it pretty much. The Republican Party, I'm sure, is not happy. A lot of them are not happy. Well, we're doing massive deficit spending, which is more of a liberal left-wing approach to economics.
Although, I mean, it's a little bit different in this case because you broke it, you buy it sort of thing with shutting down the economy. But I mean, I think your point is a fair one, which is that he is transactional. He's not philosophical. It's probably something that he would admit.
Yeah, I don't think he's a deep thinker, and I say he's a hypocrite. Of course, in the piece, he likes cheap labor when it works for him. He had this lawsuit he had to settle about using cheap illegal Polish workers in the 80s, and again. He's employed a lot of undocumented Latinos in his hotels and restaurants, hotels and clubs. And so it's not clear how deep his commitment is to helping the working class or the working man.
Well,
but on the trade stuff, Biden is terribly vulnerable.
Right, and the hypocrisy abounds. I mean, the same people would say, hey, if those people in this country illegally are working and they're getting jobs and they're supporting their family, then leave them alone. So the hypocrisy just sort of ricochets throughout the Beltway, I suppose. I wanted to get
and Warren and look, Elizabeth Warren is running for vice president. He wants him to pick her as vice president. He wants Biden to pick her as vice president.
Yeah.
Biden, as I said, his bankruptcy bill is what got Warren angry and pushed her into politics. But Democrats didn't want a real reformer like Bernie Sanders. They didn't want somebody, because Sanders takes the left-wing position against NAFTA and PNTR, and he and Trump are very much aligned on that subject. That's why so many Sanders voters voted for Trump in those three states. That's why so many something like 8 million Obama voters voted for Trump in those three states in 2016.
And Chris Arnott, the Wall Street financier turned photojournalist, I meant to say, has an interesting review of a couple of books from liberal academics, and I guess Nick Kristof and his wife are columnist academics. But anyway, and he makes the point that they don't get the point exactly about those that don't have a path to obvious success and self-sufficiency in America. He writes, you don't have to go far to see people stuck on this ladder where they can't get to an upper rung. You don't have to leave the Acela corridor. You just have to get off the Acela. The pain and despair that fills so much of America fills large parts of Bridgeport, Baltimore, New York City, Hunts Point, and the Bronx, just miles from some of the most elite colleges, has a shooting gallery above on a bridge above the train tracks. He's talking about the neighborhood in the Bronx. And he talks about the books, saying, they've done a nice job of quantitative analysis from afar, but when you do that, only the people impacted individually lose their voice and collectively their agency. They risk becoming data to understand, not people to listen to and learn from, making it harder to understand why they may do things that better educated readers and researchers wouldn't. And I wonder, I remember after the 2016 election, the Nicholas Kristofs of the world were running around saying they're going to get out into the to America and understand why people voted for Trump and how they could have been so wrong and what they're missing. And that lasted a couple of weeks, and then they returned to their comfortable spaces, and they write these books, as Arnade references, sort of as a from a distance, and as somebody diagnosing rather than somebody trying to understand, learn from, and react accordingly. And that seems to me like a big problem that the leftist intelligentsia that portends to speak for so many of these downtrodden individuals continues to suffer from.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the point is, I did the report. It's not that hard to find out what working class people are thinking. I did it in New York. There was a stapler factory, the Swingline Stapler Factory moved from Queens to Mexico while I was doing my book. I followed the move, and it was a straight up NAFTA outsourcing, not outsourcing, a move to a cheap labor environment. I'd done reporting in Ohio with Autolite spark plugs. That company in Fostoria, Ohio, moved to Mexicali, and I talked to these people, and they're not all white, angry white people. They're also unhappy Latinos and black people and Chinese immigrants and Eastern European immigrants and so on. There's all sorts of people who have been hurt by this, and it's not just in those three industrial states that I was talking about. It's across the country. It's in Albany, Georgia. It's the casualties of NAFTA and PNTR are littered all over the place. So it doesn't take, if you're an elitist reporter, what I call university-sponsored, approved liberal, even so, you don't have to go very far to find people who were hurt by NAFTA and PNTR. And the fact that the Democratic Party gave the shaft, or the Clinton Democratic Party gave the shaft to the working class, and that the Obama administration, Obama knows. Remember, Obama campaigned against Hillary Clinton on NAFTA in 2008 when it suited him. And then once he got into power, he went along to get along with the Wall Street people and the fundraisers, because a lot of this was done just to raise money. Clinton realized this was a great way to raise money from banks and corporations that previously didn't give money to the Democratic Party. So it's just, the evidence is so obvious, and they just don't want to look at it. They want to face it. They nominate Joe Biden, who is the quintessential, what I call in the piece, in the Spectator piece, neoliberal Democrat, Clinton Democrat.
He is John MacArthur, publisher of Harper's Magazine, author of The Selling of Free Trade and You Can't Be President, The Outrageous Barriers to Democracy in America. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Hey, if you own or run a business with an office or warehouse, now is the time to take action and keep your facility, your employees, your workers, your visitors healthy. And right now, hospital and surgical grade disinfecting is available for all surfaces. This disinfecting is EPA registered and approved for coronaviruses and 140 other organisms. This is better than deep cleaning, folks. It's made to take care of what we're dealing with right now. So take action now to keep your facility, your employees, and soon your visitors safe and healthy. And the good news is that COVID-19 is an enveloped virus, and with the right disinfecting, viruses are easily compromised, neutralizing their capacity to infect, and that's exactly what you need right now. The company is called Chicagoland Mold Doctors. Chicagoland Mold Doctors. They've been doing microbial disinfecting for almost a decade, and they have quick response teams standing by right now to take care of your facility as soon as possible. The number to call, 312-543